So I made a bit of money in crypto. Also got scammed a couple times.
I want to do something that I'm getting money from day one.
First client paid us $4,000, but they never used our service. It could be very dangerous hiring the wrong market maker.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Nalikes Podcast. I'm Talha, and in each episode we bring you insightful conversations with the founders and builders who are shaping the future of Web3. Our goal here is to educate and inspire the Web3 founders while showcasing what other successful founders are doing for their projects. Make sure you watch till the end as you learn practical and actionable steps that you can apply to your own projects and startups today. Today's guest is Jelle Buth. He is the co-founder of Enflux, and we'll be talking to him about crypto market making and his journey as a Web3 founder. Thank you so much for coming on. How are you doing today?
I am very good. I'm very good. Thanks for having me.
Amazing. So as we discussed earlier, that this podcast is focused on Web3 founders. So I'll be asking you questions, of your journey as a Web3 founder and what you have learned. So it's really important that we start with you, your personal background. So I want to ask, what have you been doing before crypto? Would you like to share with the world?
Yeah, cool. I actually came into crypto around the COVID times. I think like a lot of people that got bored in COVID and didn't really know what to do, I got involved into stocks and then typical crypto. Got lucky in the bull market. Actually, it ended up going pretty well, but used my student loan partly to get into crypto. And I wouldn't say it was really a sensible decision, but it turned out to be pretty well. And then I learned along the way. So I would say in the beginning, I definitely wasn't educated enough on the whole crypto space and topic, but I just took some risk. Turned out well, but at the end, I was educated enough. So that really shows that skin in the game and how more skin in the game really gets you to learn more about the space. So I was studying logistics and economics at my bachelor, and then marketing analytics and data science as my master's. So the coding side, the algorithmic trading side was a little bit more involved in my master's. So I made a bit of money in crypto, not too crazy, but I definitely wanted to put it to work. Got involved into some algorithmic trading, some arbitrage bots, got scammed a couple times, as a lot of crypto users get into. And then I actually found an open source project, which got me into like the coding and the algorithmic trading side of things. So I got really deep into the community, learned how to use Python, how to run my custom strategies, how market making works. And that's kind of like where the whole journey started. And I've actually Enflux my first company. I used to work at a company before, which did market making. Did the trading side there before, so really knew how to like shape the algorithms, do the trading, get involved into market making. And then I decided to actually pivot and started my own company together with my co-founder.
Got it. Amazing. So we'll get to the Enflux part. So you're saying that this is your first startup. That's very interesting. So my first question is that I like to ask everyone is why crypto, and what was your aha moment? Like you saw that, okay, I've always returns or gains is something that attracts a lot of people. I myself got attracted because of seeing the prices of NFT. My friend showed me a monkey and told me this is worth millions of dollars. But what was it for you that are like, okay, this is something I want to build a startup in? Because first of all, building a startup as a founder is really hard, but in that too, in a crypto space is even harder. So let's get to I want to ask is, what was that moment for you where you realized, okay, this is too big to ignore, or that aha moment, and what can other founders learn from that? Like what was your vision for taking a bet on the space?
I think it's in line with whatever we focus on at Enflux, which is all around transparency and kind of like collaboration. And I think allowing everyone in the world to have access to blockchain and technology outside of the usual fiat systems, etc., I think was the aha moment for me. That didn't get me initially involved like most people. Probably a price appreciation gets most people involved, but that's how they start to read about like crypto in general. And same for me. So the aha moment was really learning that there's ways around the fiat system and everything, that everyone can get access to crypto basically.
And why you wanted to solve this problem? Is it something personal?
I think so. The impact we have as a market maker is different than a typical project, right? Like we're a facilitator, so we help projects succeed. So rather than focusing on one project and trying to like make a change, we help every project to have a higher success rate. by doing a good service in that sense. We're the infrastructure of it. So in a way, we wanted to participate, but we didn't want to like put a bet on one specific project or really participating in that. We just wanted to help the whole industry and make the whole industry better. And that can only be done by service providers like us, marketing firms, and really make an impact on a larger scale rather than as a single project owner.
Got it. One thing I like to do is I like to dumb down things so a 5-year-old can understand, because that's how I personally learn things. So let's dumb it down. Let's start with what is market making for those founders that might be watching. What is market making and why is it important?
So I try to like explain it by a more simplified version that probably a lot of people interact with, which is liquidity pools on Uniswap, where you can have a token on Uniswap and that is tradable, then it's listed, and it's tradable if you put liquidity into a liquidity pool. The underlying algorithm, which is awesome, allows people to buy and sell and participate in the market. A liquidity pool that is empty, people cannot trade because there's no counterparties to the trade. And the beauty about Uniswap is that you don't need a market maker because it's an automated market making model. But on centralized exchange, that works way differently. And it's not only centralized exchange, but when you work with an order book, which most centralized exchanges work on, you need a market maker, because how trading is possible is by placing limit sell and limit buy orders on the book, where if someone buys, they interact with these limit sell orders. And that's how price moves. If someone buys $1,000, they interact with the first, the second, and the third seller in the book, which means that price moves up. And then, of course, if people sell, price moves down. If you have an empty order book, people cannot trade because there's no counterparties. So simple terms, we fill up these order books for projects so people can actually trade, buy and sell and participate. Without us, there wouldn't be a counterparty to a trade. Yeah. So
on centralized exchanges. On centralized exchanges.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
So our services are primarily on centralized exchanges rather than decentralized exchanges.
Got it. So if I were to understand it, because of you, I'm able to trade on Binance because of companies like you.
Exactly. Even on Bitcoin, even on Ethereum, there's market makers involved that place limit orders still, even though that market is huge. The big benefit is if you would remove a couple market maker, there's still a market. But for smaller projects, right, if you would remove the market maker, there is no market because 80% of the liquidity limit orders in the book is from a market maker, for example. And this doesn't only happen on the crypto market, right? The whole stock system behind works with market makers as well.
Isn't that I'm trying to understand here because this is new for me personally as well. So from what I understand, market making is on centralized exchanges or even on these coins, you guys provide liquidity so others can, do the trading. But let's say, but isn't it unethical or sort of like creating fake transactions? I'm curious.
So it's unethical if the market maker wants to do unethical stuff, because in some senses we have control over markets. Because if we are saying we provide liquidity here and suddenly here, we have moved up price up and down, right? So it is essential for a market to have liquidity. And the only way to get that consistently is with people that have algorithms. Anyone in the market can still participate because it's an open market. You can have an algorithm yourself and have tokens and dollars to do that. But in order for liquidity to come on board organically, there needs to be volume first. Before there's volume, there needs to be liquidity first. So you got to hire people like us to do that. And that's where it's really important. You got to hire the right guys, because you got to hire the ethical market maker, so to say, and not the market maker that is here to pump and dump or do some malicious things behind the back of the projects, right? But it is true, it could be very dangerous hiring the wrong market maker. Got
it. So if I were to summarize what we've discussed so far, because that's what I like to do, because I used to teach people as well before I did my other things. And one thing I realized is that if you yourself can't summarize what you've just explained, then you don't really understand. So you were studying logistics and these you were into these trading algorithms. You found out crypto, and you saw that how this whole system can replace or improve the existing fiat system, and then you decided to become a founder by launching your own market trading firm. Why you wanted to do your own thing rather join someone who's already doing it? Because that is something I talk to with a lot of founders about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't really start a company because you want to do it, right? You either see an opportunity or want to solve a problem, or just have something in mind that no one else is thinking. So when you came up with, okay, because we discussed what is marketing making, and I understand the potential of this market, like how big the opportunity can be. But you as a founder, when you decided to launch this company, why not rather join someone who's already doing it rather than do something on your own? So what was that unique insight? Because one thing that we talk a lot about on this podcast is ideation, right? Because there's this concept of painkillers and vitamins. Some products or some companies are painkillers, which means that they need to exist, while some other companies are vitamins, which means that they just enhance existing products. So, and from what I can understand so far, your company is a painkiller. So help me understand what was the ideation process, and then why did you decide to launch this company, Enflux?
So it was painkillers, and what was the other one again?
It's
A
vitamin, right?
vitamin.
So there are two kinds of
Okay.
startups. One is like a painkiller.
Yeah.
So we talk about WhatsApp, Uber, and so many others, right? Which we can't survive as like a painkiller. We need to eat it to solve a problem, right? And some are
Yeah.
vitamins, like it's good to have. And that's something I'm personally doing because I told you, right? When in my background, I've launched a lot of startups, and then they all have been vitamins. They haven't been painkillers. So
Yeah.
that's why I ask a lot, because again, a lot of startups that exist in Web3 and a lot of startups that we work with Web3 are something that won't survive the market, because I'm very true with my clients. Like, you're doing
Oh
this,
yeah.
but this will not work, right? So
Mm-hmm.
help me understand, what was the ideation process for you, and what was the framework, and how can other founders use your framework to figure out what ideas to work on, what problems to solve, or what companies to
Yeah.
start?
Yeah. Very good question, because it really came from a problem that we saw in the space that we thought, hey, we should make a change here and start it. Because I was working at a different market maker doing almost exactly what we're doing here before. There were two main issues. So the good thing is market making is needed. It's that painkiller that everyone needs, because you cannot have liquidity without a market maker. You're not getting listed without a market maker. But there was also a lot of shit happening, to be fair, in the space. A lot of malicious market makers doing the wrong thing, unethically, trading behind the back of the client, not really collaborating. So I thought it was a lack of transparency and a lack of collaboration between market makers and the project. While we work for them, they hire us to do a service, but we're almost seen as these guys that just turn on bots and send a weekly report and you don't hear from us, right? So that's really the thing that we wanted to change, where we hold specific knowledge that the project doesn't hold. They focus on fundamentals. They're really good at that. That's why they start the project. They focus on marketing most of the time, or hire, guys outside to do that. And then you have the whole token liquidity exchanges side of things, which is often something they're quite unfamiliar with. So if we would just simply do our job and not talk to them, I think it's such essential information to have, or knowledge to have, that we should convey that to them and really collaborate in that sense, rather than just be a separate component that they just never really speak to. So it was really that the things I like the book, The Blue Ocean Strategy, right? How I look at that is it talks about four things. What are some features that the market doesn't need? Let's remove them. What are some features that are not there yet in the space that people don't focus on, we can add to really be on a different level of competition? And I think the two things that we add, one thing that we really focus on is collaboration. And I think the second thing that we add as a new feature was transparency to the mix. So we're trying to be different by adding transparency as a new USP that no one really focused on yet. We're seeing people actually pivoting the same way. And then we really improved on collaboration as an existing feature, but we really improved that compared to our competitors. That's how
Got
we
it.
try to look at it.
Got it. So you were working with already in a company that was a market maker, but you saw that they weren't that transparent, and the communication or the experience that client had, because that is something that is the reason I started this company, is because my personal company, because of the experience. So okay, now here's a question: why not improve that in your current company rather than go and start the whole another company? I mean, wouldn't that be an easier thing for you to do?
I mean,
Because
I wish.
just to add on top of that, because there might be a lot of people that are already working in startups where they might be in a similar position where they see some things wrong, but they don't know whether to improve it in the current company or go take a risk and start their own thing. So I want to know what was
Yeah.
going on in your mind at that time.
I mean, I wanted to, but I couldn't really do it because I think I was relatively new there. Even though I felt like I understood the industry well, but I didn't get the opportunity to really make a change. It was more of a culture. I feel like to be stay in your own lane and do your thing. And my thing was trading rather than talking to the clients or showing them the data and really collaborating with them. That was not my thing. And I couldn't really do that. So, and the other thing was as well that I was the one that was designing the whole backend strategy. So I knew the core service in and out and what to do. So it was relatively easy for me to start something. So I think the fact that I couldn't really do something within the current company and had to stay in my own lane, plus the fact that I knew how to execute it myself, and within, let's say, 3 months' time, build something that is worth selling to clients as a service, is something that allowed me to do this. If I had to spend 3 years of building something, systems and everything in order to get here, I probably wouldn't have done it, and I would have gone the route where I would have done it within the current company. But that wasn't the case, basically. So it was a easy to grasp opportunity and the lack of opportunity within the current company, so to say.
Got it. So I think here's a takeaway for founders, that they should listen to their employees and they should empower them, because if they don't, they might have competitions. That's one thing. And
Yeah.
and the second thing is that for the employees within the company, if they see a problem, which you did, and they need to have something tangible, which in your case you had something that, because again, if you didn't have that, I'm not sure if you might have achieved the same results, but you knew you have that unique specific knowledge that the market was willing to pay for. So I think if you were to summarize your ideation process, is that you spend time learning the market, right? Because most of the founders just go and launch something without even having insights into that specific market. So you had that market insight, you had the unique specific knowledge with which, I think in your case, the whole infrastructure that you built, and then you just, went ahead with it. So that's a new kind of framework for ideation. But my question is, you had the idea, you have the insight, you have the skills. Why a transition from a trader to an entrepreneur? Because being an entrepreneur requires a lot of different skill set. So why was that? Or did you partner up with other people who complemented your skills?
Oh yeah, 100%. I have a great co-founder where maybe I am a little bit more of an entrepreneur than a trader. I would guess sometimes. I love the trading aspect and I love the building of it, but I'm not the best developer out there by far. But my co-founder is. I am good at how I explain. I'm pretty good at moving a business forward, and then my co-founder is good at that as well. But he's also very good at putting structure in place behind me. So I push it forward, create a mess. He helps pushing it forward, but definitely he's really good at the operational side of things, which has been awesome.
Where did this come from? This entrepreneurship thing, was it something that you had it since you were a child, or was it something that you were inspired? Like, again, I know a lot of people, right? And some people just don't want to take that risk. They don't want to be in a position where they're responsible and accountable for each and everything, right? Because I've been doing this for the past 7 years. I know how difficult this is, being an entrepreneur, right? I'm not saying I'm Elon Musk or something, but I've done it at my own scale. So I want to understand, is it something that you have inherently that you keep? Because the people that have these entrepreneurial things, they always spot problems, ideas, even when they're out there discussing ideas. Because that's like I am, right? Even when I'm out with dinner with my friends, I'm just discussing ideas. I don't discuss, other stuff. So what was in your case? Did you have this thing in you since you were a kid?
I don't know. I sometimes look back at it and we're like, am I an entrepreneur since I was born or since I was young? And I don't know. What I've always had, though, I feel like if I look back at it, is someone discussing an opportunity, and my head starts to go, and I start to ask questions, and I start to see opportunities, and get excited about it. And I still have that. I go to yesterday I was at a founders meetup in Amsterdam, which was cool. And then people just start to bounce ideas back and forth, and I'm like, that sounds cool, but what about this? What about that? And that is something that I feel like I've always had. But it's not that I've started a lot of things before, to be fair. I wish I had a beautiful story of like I've always been a founder, I've always been an entrepreneur, but I don't think that's the case. But I think this has been the first company. I've always had freedom within the jobs that I did. I used to work at Red Bull as a student. Had to do sales there. I just had complete autonomy over when I would do it, where, how I would approach the sales, how I would get the leads in a way. And of course, there was a lot of guidance and structure around it, but it was still, I would do it whenever I wanted, so to say. So having that freedom has always been in there. And that's, of course, what entrepreneurs sometimes seek, is not having someone to tell you what to do, but rather figuring it out yourself.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
I guess in the future as well, right? Like, I'm not saying I would never go back to being an employee. I think being an employee could be awesome. And sometimes I want to be being an employee again and being told what to do rather than having to figure it out myself, because that's way easier. But you can be an entrepreneur within a company as well. An intrapreneur, I think is the right term for that, which is awesome.
That's very interesting as well. Amazing. So we discussed the ideation framework, like how did you come up with the idea for Enflux? One another thing that I want to raise awareness on is validating your idea, and then the next two things I want to talk about is validating your idea, because most of the founders that I have worked with, and I personally have been in this position where I come up with an idea, I spend some time on it, like, okay, this is what the market wants, but in reality, no one really cares about your idea. The market is so busy, and in today's world where the attention span is so low, and we all are addicted to instant gratification and these dopamine hits, no one really spends time on idea. Like, people send me these like one-pager documents or like 10 pages white papers. I don't even read them. I just want one sentence, right? So what has been your approach in validating your idea? And because again, what does market validation mean, or what does validating your idea or product market fit means, is that you spin up something that someone is willing to pay for, and it solves a problem, right? So, but in your case, you were already working in this market making company. I assume they were making money. You saw a problem, you go and did your own thing. What has been the journey for you for market validation? Because I assume that I'm assuming you're making money with your solution, right? So what has been your journey in market validation? And the next thing I want to talk about is how have you been funding your journey? There are two ways for founders. Is basically bootstrapping, right? Putting your own money or generating revenue and then growing the company, or second is fundraising. So let's talk about these two things. What did you do for validating your idea, and then how are you funding your venture?
Love the questions. The validating, so I think it happened at the previous company already, right? Like there was a business there. I think they didn't focus on the right USPs. So it was all about like, hey, if they're getting business in without having these USPs, I bet that we can get the same amount of business in plus more with these USPs. So we didn't, and then it goes into the funding maybe, and then I'll bring it back. But we are bootstrapped, so we didn't make money for a long time. The startup costs were not that high because we knew how to build the systems ourselves. It just costed a lot of time and effort from us, me and my co-founder, to build everything. So it being bootstrapped and not making money initially was the only cost that we had. Then, of course, we had servers, which are not too expensive. You can get like grants for that. You had to have a couple employees at some point. But to be fair, we built everything. When there was demand for it, we started building more features. So going back to the first question about validation, we just got like 2-3 clients in, talked about the USPs, felt out how that worked, and then built stuff that they requested, or we proposed to them and asked them like, hey, how would you feel about having this type of like data? Sitting on calls with them. But it was just about getting 3 clients in, and then you have kind of like a product and you can start validating it, and then build as you go. And the good thing was we didn't build a $1 million application before, which you need to validate before. No, we built something, tested it right away, and then continued to build as there was demand for a new feature or anything.
Got it.
So that's a luxury position.
So if I were to stop you here, you didn't really go ahead and build the whole solution. You got the customer first, and while you were building, you got the customers, and then you went ahead with it. Was that the approach you took?
Yeah, we got an MVP. of course, because we need to have a sellable service. And some clients are just a little bit harder to handle than other ones. So we got, I wouldn't say an easy client in, but it was a client that didn't require a lot of complexity, which was nice. Got that in, built the whole dashboard framework around it for them to get the transparency and insights. And then ask feedback on, is this something that you find valuable? What type of like data would you else like to see? Sitting collaborative calls, how would you rate the service approximately? And as we did that, we just kept trying to like get on more clients. And a lot of validation was also about like the angles to use in email outreach, for example. We communicate our USPs in these emails and try to like see if that kind of like, you know, got them on a call or not. That's also how we try and like figure out which angles of our service are really attractive to projects out there and try and like validate the idea in that sense. So the validation mostly has been done at the previous company because it validated that we could make a profit, but really the validation that needed to be done was around like, are these the right USPs? And that's something that we discovered along the way.
Got it. One more question here, because that's going to two questions actually. So you mentioned that the validation was done at the previous company, so you knew that you'll get customers and eventually make money. So you had that in your mind, and that's sort of a piece. Because I might want to ask something personal, because that is something that most founders think, right? Because when you're building a startup, you have to take care of your own self as well, right? You have your own family, you have your own bills. So in the initial stage, you bootstrap anything, and you said that you didn't have a lot of expenses, but how are you taking care of your personal expenses or your personal lifestyle? Because that is also really important, because in my experience, most of the startups fail because founders run out of cash, because they do have their personal needs as well, right? Not everyone, because one thing I learned early on is that rich people get more attempts at throwing the dart. So think, I see startups as dart, right? You keep on throwing, and eventually hit the bullseye. The people that don't have that kind of, don't come from money or don't have that kind of backing, have at least just one or two attempts, right? And that have been my case personally as well, is that I had to hit the bullseye, else I'll have to go get a job or something. So how did you manage that?
I've been so fortunate. My co-founder has had multiple startups. Some of them failed. Most of them failed, and then this is the lucky one. So I feel like his fails, I'll use them, and then I get the successful one right away. So I've been really lucky that this is my first startup, and it just works out the way that I wanted. It's not all luck. It's been a lot of preparation, a lot of hard work, of course. But compared to some other founders, like it's been awesome in that sense. And that means that I can get, if I'm throwing a couple other darts, I can miss the next 5 times and still be okay, and then the 6 ones hit again. Rather than having to miss the first 5 ones and then finally making a hit. That is a tough one to deal with.
There's a very interesting question here, and I'm personally curious. So you mentioned that having a co-founder who have had successes in the past. So what if you have someone like that alongside you, you avoid a lot of mistakes. But successful people or the people that have had successful startup don't really necessarily want to partner up with people that are very new, or I can be wrong. So how did you manage that? And I think that is a really good framework for founders, is that if you don't have a lot of experience yourself, you can just partner with someone. So was it your personal friend, or how did you come up with convincing someone with experience to join you? How did that went ahead? And then what can you share with other founders that can leverage on that?
Ooh, I should ask him why he really joined. But the story behind it was that I got in touch with someone, told him what I did. He said, "Oh, I have a friend that does something similar." So I'm like, "Awesome, can get me in touch with him, because there's not a lot of people that do something similar, right?" Had a chat with him, lunch, didn't speak for 3 months. And then the idea started to become a little bit more present in my head. And I was like, "Hey, dude, we got to talk again." He just exited the hedge fund because of the whole FTX idea, that he was like, "I don't want to take this risk anymore." And he just had a new opportunity there. So I think the timing was just perfect, and the opportunity was kind of like presented, and then he was ready to take a risk. He had a little bit of savings in the bank as well to at least pay for the next 4 months, 5 months of having no income. So I don't know. It was just maybe the right timing and a good, convincing story about the opportunity out there.
Do you believe in luck?
I don't want to believe in luck. I feel like...
Why is that?
I don't want to contribute any success to maybe there's a bit of luck, but I don't want to I don't want to count on luck. I don't want to say if we get lucky, we'll get it. I want to put in the work that the statistics are in my favor rather than having a 30% chance of succeeding and then hoping that the luck will be there to really push it to the successful side. I want to have the odds in my favor by putting in the work first.
A couple of days
What are your
back,
thoughts?
I was reading this. Luck is lack of knowledge, and that was very interesting for me. Is that no
Mm-hmm.
matter what you're trying to do, the only thing that you're missing is knowledge, right? So either you're trying to get in shape, either you're trying
Yeah.
to convince someone to marry you, or closing a client, or building a company. It's just the lack of knowledge or the skills that are that, right? And that is something I realized when I was in university. I read this book called Think and Grow Rich. I'm not sure if you've read that book, but I realized that you can get anything in your life if you have a burning desire and you just put consistent action, and then just learn as much as you can. So and then there is a book called Unfair Advantage, which also talks about that you increase your luck by getting out there. So like the podcast that I'm doing is maybe this might attract more opportunities, or writing online. So, but there are some
Is
times
that
in
luck
life, and
though?
that's like a luck that you create yourself, right? Because I've had so growing up in the environment. So I'm originally from Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in Dubai and I live in Bahrain. So I'm exposed to a lot of different cultures, and now work with a lot of different people in the world. Um, so just like how you said, right? You don't believe in luck, and so if you come to this part of the world, there will be a different perspective. They're like, there's a saying, "Hamare naseeb mein nahi tha," which means that was not in our fate. So, and then when someone says that, I'm still trying to figure out as well. But what I have concluded so far is that yes, there is an element that there's another saying in Arabic is that "Kil shay maktub," which means that everything is written, right? So I'm
Mm-hmm.
in the middle, right? Yes, there, everything is written on what you will achieve in life, but you can change that by taking action. So you can't just sit around, right? You won't get things. So you put action and you change your life. That's what I have concluded. But again, I have a lot to learn, and we see we're getting a lot of philosophical weird, but we're
I
here for
like it,
talking.
yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So cool. We discussed ideation, we discussed validation, and then we also sort of touched on bootstrapping and fundraising, which you mentioned that you have this co-founder who had the experience, and might even had the capital to keep you guys going. So that's really good. So the takeaway for founder is that other founders watching is that maybe partner with someone who have had successes in the past, so they can help you avoid the potential mistakes, and then they can also help you keep the lights on for as long as you get your first paying
Mm-hmm.
customer. So let's talk about
I
the
think
first paying customer. Yeah, go ahead.
one thing that is, I think, another good takeaway. If we would have gotten funding and if we would have wanted that, it would have been better to get it done after the sixth client rather than having no clients. It's going to be way easier. Your valuation is going to be different. You have something to show. So it would be a waste of time if you can get six customers and then get funding and do it rather than doing it before you even have a customer because you don't have any validation and it's just going to be way harder.
Yeah, and that is something that I personally am thinking about a lot these days. So when I started my first, I mean, so I got my start with service-based businesses because
Mm-hmm.
I was put in a position where I had to pay rent, right? And no one was willing to hire me. I wrote an article on this that I applied for 300 jobs and no one really hired me. So I just had to do something myself. And I realized that the fastest way to make money online was doing a service-based business rather than a product. So I got my start with that, and still I'm doing a service-based business. So personally, I really don't want to go with VC money because I've been reading a lot of case studies and stories of the founders that uh, VC backed companies or like venture backed companies,
Mm-hmm.
is it something that I personally don't want to do, right? Because on the outside it's looked really glorified, but in the inside they're not profitable. They don't have really a work life balance. Their mental health is messed up. So personally, I want to avoid that. So therefore, like as long as we can bootstrap and then grow the company organically, because it all depends on you as a founder, right? What do we really want? I personally value freedom, and I don't want to chase what everyone else is trying to chase. Maybe if that is something you're into, go ahead. But I personally want to stay away with that. And you brought a really good point, right? If you have no traction and no customers, no one really wants to fund you. But if you have paying customers, people would be willing to fund you. So so you brought up a really good point, is that it's really easy for you to get raise funding after you have 6 customers. But how do you get from 0 to the first paying customer? You mentioned something about email. So let's talk about, how did you personally get your first paying customer? How exactly did you do that?
One more thing about the previous one is I saw a video about someone saying, before you create a product, start a service first and then create a product out of that, so you can validate it while you're actually making some money and you have the customers that will eventually take your product and it will be easy to sell. So I think that's a cool approach. And we could do that, right? We thought about a market making product, but building that is taking a year. Well, if we do a service and then in, let's say, the next 6 months, build a product out of it, that'll be a way easier step to do and probably a way better one as well. But about the first client. So we struggle with that a little bit because we thought like, oh, I have some connections. I went to some events and I got some people. I thought maybe we'll, I'll just ask them if they want to be our client. We'll do it for free. We give them something they can't resist. Or we charge them a very little amount, right? Like just your USP at that point is price, and you're trying to get like the cheapest projects out there that are not that complicated. So we actually got one, but they never, it's funny because our first client paid us $4,000, but they never used our service, and we still have it. And they're still like, yeah, we'll use it at some point. And a couple months ago, they got back to us and be like, hey, we're starting now. And then eventually they postponed again. So that was funny. But we try and reach out on LinkedIn manually, email them, get into Discord, sending them videos about liquidity analytics, trying to like provide value first and get into conversation. We got a couple conversations, but it took a lot of time to get into Telegram chats, get past the gatekeeper there, get on a chat with the founders, have those calls, being a little bit inexperienced still with the sales side of things. So that was tough. But we got a couple. So we got like, let's say 3 or 4 in that way. It just takes a lot of time and a lot of work.
So you did like Paul Graham says, you did things that don't scale. Are you familiar with that concept?
Yeah, it wasn't scalable.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Amazing. So that was like a lot of cold outreach. So did you know who your ICP was? You had a defined offer? Because I personally I'm spend a lot of time, because in Web3 there's a lot of tools are missing out there, but slowly a lot of tools are coming out there, like automation tools these days and stuff like that. So, but what was the conviction that kept you going? Like these cold outreach, because when you start going out there, you get rejected, and on daily basis, I get my team gets cursed. So I have a team of SDRs doing outreach. So what kept you going to do this cold outreach?
I mean, just the investment we have done into like starting this and not wanting to stop, and also knowing that we need, like 4 clients to pay our own bills, and then we'll be at the same level as we would be in a salary at a different company.
So you wanted to be ramen profitable. Are you familiar with that concept?
No, but please explain.
So there's a concept in the startup world called ramen profitable, which means that the founders have to get to a stage where they can just at least pay for their lifestyle, which means you're not really, really profitable, but you're making enough so you can sustain your lifestyle. And that concept come from the noodle, right? That instant noodles. So they're cheap and stuff like that. So that's the term, ramen profitability, which means that you can at least pay for your lifestyle. Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, that's good. I like it. And that's at one point where we got, luckily. But yeah, it was all non-scalable things. It was putting in a lot of work, trying to like send out a lot of messages. And I think that's just the way you get your first customer. Trying to like, what is the thing that gets people on a call? We wanted to offer free market making trial. We did liquidity and like audits where we just send a video over, track their liquidity over time. That kind of sticked. But the problem was not a lot of people know what market making actually is. They know they need one because the exchange tells them that they need one, but they don't know the details, let alone they understand the things that make you different than competitors, right? Except for price. So it was hard to really get the first couple ones on.
Okay, so the way you got was cold outreach, and you didn't know that about these all automation tools out there. By the way, the people that are watching now, there are a lot of outreach tools like Drippy.ai for Twitter, LA Growth Machine for LinkedIn, And there are a lot of tools. Yeah, there is Instantly. There's so many tools out there. So if you're a founder in a position trying to figure out how to get your customers, just spend some time, sit down, go and search these tools. On Telegram, we have Enreach, we have Spreader.io. There's so many tools. I'm really good friends with all of these people. So again, because one thing I've realized is that sales can solve all problems, right? You don't have to work at another feature. You don't have to go raise another round. You just need to figure out sales, and everything will solve your problem. I personally want to position, so when we were starting out, we had a lot of advisors. And one thing I tell founders, don't listen to your advisors, because some of them, the interests are not aligned. They want to get their retainer. They don't really care about you. And that's something a person, right? So when we were starting out, a lot of people advise us to build a marketplace, because what we were doing is helping projects launch, right? What we do is that we do product development now, but back then we were focusing on NFT projects, and everyone advised us to launch a marketplace. Our own advisor, right? And we were paying him like a couple of $1,000 every month to advise us, and that was the advice. And I personally had the conviction that I don't want to listen to him. I want to stick to doing services. And what happened? 20 other companies that were a marketplace, all of them failed. The ones that survived were Blur and OpenSea, and all the companies in this region as well failed, right? So, and then I realized that what he should have advised me was that you needed sales. And what happened? All those companies that were doing a marketplace pivoted to us, like being a service-based company, doing custom solutions. So one thing is don't listen to your advisors. I mean, you should listen to advisors if they interest and align, but as a founder, just have conviction in what you think is right, and then figure out sales that could solve all your problems. Cool. Going back to our discussion, so you figured out cold outreach, and you had a lot of sales demo, and eventually you got a paying customer. So let's talk about the business models. One thing that a lot of founders in the space don't really figure out is one thing. I personally don't want to do anything where I cannot get customers from day one, right? If this will take me 7 months to make money, I rather don't do it. I want to do something that I'm getting money from day one. So right now, when we are a service-based company, we are moving towards products, but with those products as well, if I don't make money in the first 2 weeks, I want to drop that idea. So how did you figure out your business model, and then what can founders use to figure out business model? Because there are a lot of projects out there that have traction, but they have no clue on how to monetize or how to generate revenue from their existing audiences or customers. And because they think that Web3 is a different space, we can launch a token, we can launch an NFT, we can launch this and take money from the transactions, but they need to have business models, and someone need to talk about this more. And I think there's an opportunity for people to go and start a business where they help projects figure out business models. So let's talk about that.
I think one thing to add to that is one thing I felt, at least, is you say I want to make money from day one, customers from day one, otherwise I'm not doing it. And sometimes I have a little bit of the same, but I sometimes feel like a fake entrepreneur, because the entrepreneurial journey sometimes feels like, oh, you're putting in the work for 3 years and that's where you can reap the benefit. And if you haven't suffered for 3 years, you're not a real entrepreneur in a way, right? I at least felt like, hey, we've suffered for 4 months and then had maybe a decent time for another 2, and then things start to really pick up and go very well. But does that make me less of an entrepreneur than someone who has struggled for 4 years and really had to have the real blood, sweat, and tears more than I had? I'm not sure.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong here. For this specific business, we had no revenue for 8 months. But because it was just that I sucked at sales. So I had acquired customers in Web 2, but it's just that it was difficult for me to acquire customers in Web 3. But I was eventually able to figure out. But the reason I'm saying is that I now, after having done a lot, met a lot of people, and all these knowledge that I've acquired, it's best that if you go for a service-based business, charge money from day one. And if you're doing a product, because again, right, like I said, right, venture-backed startups are different. My approach is sort of different, like launch micro SaaS products and then generate revenue for day one, and then ditch the free plan. I'm following this guy. I can't remember his name. His name is, I think, Mark Liu. You should check him up on Twitter. It's at Mark_LOUVION. So that guy is like a solo entrepreneur, and he has this concept of ditch the free plan, which means that a lot of products out there have a free plan with which they think they'll attract people, get them used to their product, and then convert them to paying users. But what happens is that you don't really get really good customers, because one thing I've realized, okay, if customers come to your product and they say it's a good product or they're happy with your product, those are not the people that you want. You want people who come to your
Oh,
product and take out flows. Oh, this is not working, which shows that they're engaged, right? Because let's say if you're in a relationship with someone and your girlfriend says that, oh, even knowing that there are some flaws in you, she says that, okay, you're a good person. But once you get married, all the flaws start coming out, which means that initially they were not really engaged with you. So my whole point was that you need people who actually want to put skin in the game, right? Which means that we're willing to pay some amount to test your product, and you don't need really the customer, because, like I said, right, if you're a solopreneur, if you're a bootstrap startup, you need money to survive, right? You're not those venture-backed startups. Again, if you want to do venture-backed startup, there's a whole different framework for that. But I'm talking about entrepreneurs at small scales trying to bootstrap something. Is just a free plan. Have charge for whatever you have to offer. That's the framework that I've started researching a lot these days.
The I think it was Alex Ramosi, which I follow quite a lot. He said he is, I think he's pro free plan, or like something free to get your foot in the door and then really build it out. But the other variation he said is don't make it free, but make them pay whatever amount, but send it to a social cause, like something good for the world, right? So they're still invested, but it's not a you need the money. It's more like, hey, give it to a good cause of your liking. I don't care, but you need to be someone invested in a way, right? And that's where you kind of maybe have like the ideal balance between like, hey, I'm not doing it for the money. I really want to help you, but you got to pay something to be invested.
Got it. I think there's another thing as well, right? So let's talk about me personally or you individually. You value things more that you've paid for. So let's say even if you have paid $10 for something, you would want to use it and you would want to get the benefit out of it.
One of the interesting things, right, there's psychology around it. If we would charge our services double as much, like double what we do right now, people would value it as a higher quality service than if we would do the same as what we do right now.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I was writing an article recently, $500 clients versus $5,000 clients. Like working with a lot of clients over the past few years, I've realized that what kind of work clients to work with, because in the past, we were sort of desperate to get work in, and we would take anyone and everyone on as long as they had a pulse and they had a wallet. We would just start working with them. But now what we have done is that we choose what kind of people to work with, because someone who's paying you 10,000 or 20 or 30, because our average product size is really, ticket size is really high. The people that pay, let's say 40 or 50K, they don't even ping you once, because all they want is, and then someone that's paying you 4K, it's like, I need daily updates. I need stuff like that. So as a service provider, you have to really get good at figuring out what kind of customers you want, right? And you sometimes have to let go of customers. For founders, first-time founders, that would be a really counterintuitive advice. Is that okay? First of all, I'm not able to get customers, and now you're saying I need to let them go. Yes, at some point you will have to. So, what has been your experience with that?
Oh yeah, we are experiencing that a lot. We're at the stage right now where we're building a brand, and it's taking off in that sense, where we will have a little bit more optionality of who to work with, and we only work with the people that we like, or at least that have good intentions as well within the space. But especially the ones that so this is our sales process. Sometimes we do a trial, we show them that we do a better service than their competitor does right now when we take over for a week, and then we say, hey, we've done a better job. They can see it in the data and everything. They're happy, but they also want to pay less. And then they, like, these are the cheap customers that just don't have a lot of funds, which is not their issue, which is sometimes bad. Then they start complaining about like $100 of their account going down, and that is just normal market behavior. Someone is selling, we have to buy it up, and they're like, what is happening? We have to explain that, and they're paying the minimum. And then we have another client who is way bigger. We meet with them once a week. They trust that we do our thing. They sometimes ping us for something that is really urgent, but you don't hear from them. And if you really need to be there, we'll be there within a second, right? And it's so much easier to work with them. But you got to have the small clients first, a little bit more annoying, before you can take those big clients on. At least that's what we have seen.
Yeah. And again, you improve your skill, you get experience. But
Exactly.
Those clients, the one that you mentioned that are paying a bigger amount, that ping you once a week, all they care about is the result, right? Because they themselves have been through that journey. So they understand, what you're going through.
Nah, and I don't know if this is related to it, but so let's say in our beginning stages, if I'll be more on top of every dollar that we spend. Right now, if we spend something, I'm not saying we have a shitload of money to spend, but like I'm not going to care about $100 that is somewhere wasted because it's not worth my attention anymore. And maybe that's the same with the bigger, higher paying clients. They're really busy themselves. They have a lot going on. And of course, what you're doing is important, but they just trust you that you do your thing so they can take their mind off it and focus on the things that actually matter.
I mean, that's a very good insights for founders that are in Web3 or in any industry, is that focus on getting customers that obviously themselves are successful and rich. And because the thing, again, going back to Alex Hormozi, solve rich people's problem, they pay better.
Exactly.
That's what he's right. So far, what we have concluded as a business model is that, when you start, if you're a services-based company or a product-based company, you will need to get, these smaller paying customer, because that also helps you improve and learn a lot of things. But eventually your goal should be getting customers that pay a higher price. And so but I want to go back, what is your business model for Enflux? Because we covered what is market making, and we covered what you guys do, which you provide these liquidity for decentralized exchanges. So what's your business model? Is it based on a recurring fee, monthly subscription fee, or is it like a one-time payment, or you charge a success fee? Like, for those of the people that aren't aware of market making and they might want to do something in this industry, how can they figure out their business model or the pricing?
Yeah, so there are a couple of variants within our business model in the industry. The standard is a simple monthly flat fee for the service that we do. There's other models which I think is too much to dive into, but some variations of that is partly getting paid in tokens, not fully, to align incentives to make sure that we're on the same page in a way. The other thing is sometimes if profit is an objective, some people do a profit share, so there's kind of like a success fee in there. But I think the success for us is not particularly profit only. It's also about like uptime and making sure there's always good quality liquidity. So that's tough to measure. But in essence, it's a simple flat fee that they pay per month for managing their liquidity.
So if I understand correctly, your current business model is more of like a services company, right? Or is it automated? How?
So if you have high frequency trading for profit, not as a service, and you have a service, we're kind of like somewhere in the middle, where we have algorithms, but the algorithms are the service we provide. But there's definitely a service aspect to it, right? We're talking to customers, we keep them up to date, we let them know what's happening. They have questions which we need to respond to, but we're the ones managing the algorithms because that's very complex.
Makes sense. And what does your typical customers look like? I did not ask. I assume these are centralized exchanges, but what does your typical customer look like? Like, whom do you serve?
In essence, is anyone that has a token that's listed on an order book exchange, mostly centralized exchanges. But the project we prefer to work with are the ones that have good fundamentals, a good purpose behind it, and ideally with a proper business model, and the business model does not involve selling tokens to get revenue in. It's having a profitable business, and the token solves a problem within the project itself.
I have a question here. Why would, because I assume that someone who's listed on a centralized exchange, they have figured out a lot of things that these new tokens haven't figured out. Why would they want to outsource market making rather than if they can have a team in-house? Because that is a question I ask myself as well, is why would someone want to hire a development studio if they can have their own team in-house? So I have my own answer for that, but I want to know your answer. Like, why do they want to outsource it to a company like you rather than having them in-house? Like, I want to hear your thoughts.
Some of them have it, but most of them are not traders. Most of them are understanding the crypto space, but they don't understand liquidity, trading, and liquidity especially. I mean, you need algorithms that are up and running 24/7, keeping an eye on the market. We have people monitoring 24/7 if things are going the right way, so we can shift things quickly if needed. I mean, if you need to set it up internally for your 3 exchanges, your costs are going to be probably higher by hiring the right people. And to be fair, the people in this space are quite expensive in the algorithmic engineering trading space. They're not cheap. So if you want to hire a professional to do that for you, you're probably going to pay significantly more overall. And then you need to maintain whole systems. There's a lot of overhead there. Like, I wouldn't want to deal with that personally if I were a project.
Got it. So I think that resonates with my answer as well, is that the founders themselves don't have insights on that specific topic, because we work with mostly non-technical founders who don't have the knowledge on how to build products, so they want to rather prefer us. So they don't have insights, and if they want to do it in-house, they are expensive, because like you said. And the third is that they just don't want to have the headache. They don't want to make it their main business, because their main business would be something else. So that it's better to outsource it. So from what I've seen, this can be a very lucrative industry. Like I didn't have these insights. So if this is the case, where there are a lot of tokens listed on exchanges, and might of them don't want to have that knowledge. So like anyone would, if someone have enough insights on trading, they can come and become a market making provider. So what's your moat? Like, how do you see competition? Like, are you familiar with the concept of moat, right?
Yeah. It's a good question, because first of all, it's quite hard to enter the space, because it takes a decent amount of time to build systems like this, and knowing how to trade it if you don't have the experience from another market maker, so to say. Our USPs are really about like trust, collaboration, and transparency. Where, to be fair, any other market maker can up their collaboration and really focus on that. Right? It's just putting more manpower in with skilled, knowledgeable people, and really sitting down with the projects. Any project can add transparency by just making the data that they already have, because they manage the markets themselves, just public to the client. But then it's a trust factor, right? Like, some market makers are already in the space and their brand is not really associated with trust, so it's hard to get that. So to be fair, really doing the same things as we're doing is not too hard. Adding that transparency and collaboration to it. But the moat that we're having or building right now is the whole brand that is associated with it. Some market makers are already too much into a non-trustworthy market maker perspective, that they can't really pivot anymore to be a trustworthy one at some point. So it's really having the brand at some point that will be our moat, because anyone can kind of like take these USPs and do it themselves. But if we own it from the start and people know us for that, and we always act like based on trust and transparency and collaboration, we will really own those USPs rather than someone else. But that takes time.
That there's a very interesting takeaway for founders here, is that, so what if I were to conclude, though, what you are doing, obviously it's hard, there's a slight learning curve, but people can figure it out. But the way you are differentiating yourself is with trust and collaboration and experience, and just becoming the go-to brand for market making, right? So with all the stuff, that the reason we are having this podcast with one of your colleagues started raising awareness on market making, because before this podcast, or before meeting Farhad, I used to go to these events, and I used to talk to these people who were market making, and I never really got to understand. I mean, I got the high level what they're doing, but now talking to you for the past 15 minutes, I realize how important this is. So if you're a founder, doing a service or a product, start investing in building a brand, so with which you can attract, because I think this is a long-term investment that you're doing, right?
Oh, yeah.
This will take time, but this will eventually pay off. So let's talk more about that. What made you start thinking that we need to invest in building a brand? We need to start creating awareness. So, and then is this something you should advise other founders to do from day one, or is something you do at a later stage? Because from what I've concluded, yes, this is important, but this is not very important in the early days. In the early days, it's like getting the product out there, getting your first customer. But so what made you invest in building a brand for your company and for yourself? And then what advice would you have for other founders in doing this?
I would say don't worry about it when you start. Or if you really love it, do it, but don't make it your primary first focus to get clients in, because you need something more quick. And building a brand, at least for us, we started with Farhad, our CMO, like 5-6 months ago, and now we start to see some real traction and people recognizing us and people understanding what we stand for and coming on calls and be like, hey, I loved your content, or people applying to our business like, hey, I want to work with you guys because you guys what you're doing seems fair and cool and transparent, right? So I wouldn't say do it from day one, but it was just really, we did it quite early, actually, 5 months ago. I wouldn't say that's early. But overall, it was just like understanding that at one point you need inbound leads to come in. People don't understand market making, and we need to. So if you have the pyramid, right, of like getting customers in, the top 3%, they are problem aware and they need a new solution, and we can capture them. But there's a lot of projects out there that don't even know they have a problem, which is probably 25%. And how are you going to convince them? It's not by hopping on a call because they don't understand the problem yet. It's by communicating the issue publicly and making it aware. So we needed someone that can talk about these issues that are constantly happening on a daily basis. So you, as a project founder, don't see us for the third time and thinking like, hop on a call. You've seen us for the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th time. You read one of our posts and you're like, hey, actually, I might have an issue. Let me talk to these guys and let's speak to them to see what they actually do, right? So we needed more touch point to create awareness around all the issues that are happening within the market making space because people are just unaware of the problem.
And that's very interesting. And I think that was the case when we started back then. I mean, we were building products in this space, or we were helping other projects launch NFT. But the problem was they didn't even know what was an NFT. They didn't even knew what was Web3. So we had to do a lot of education around that. So, I mean, that's very interesting. So the takeaway here is that when you're starting out, don't worry too much about it. Just focus on doing things that don't scale, which is, I mean, if I were to start any business, right? Because I think, why is there like I try to ask myself, why is that second or third or fourth time founders are really successful? Because they've learned all these skills and they've built frameworks with which they can acquire customers really fast. I mean, if I were to start any business again, the first thing I would do is open my WhatsApp, message everyone I have, and get someone from my personal network, right? And then I would go to cold outreach, and then inbound is something that I would do at a later stage. So if you are a founder that has had some traction and you're looking to unlock the next level of growth, you should start focusing on building a personal brand. And the way you can do it is start talking about the problems that you solve. So the founders that might have that problem will see you as an authoritative figure and then would eventually come to you to solve their problem. I have a really good friend, Jelle Buth. I'm not sure if you know him. He talks about NFT marketing a lot. And he advised me a long time back is that Talha, start building a personal brand. And then I have a friend, Kai, who was like, the single best thing you can do now for your business that will give you results in 6 to 12 months from now is start talking about the things that you do, the problems that you solve. And that is one of the reasons we're doing this podcast. So amazing. Very interesting. And have it started giving you results? So you mentioned you have been doing this for the past 5 months. Has it converted to tangible value? I mean, in terms of dollars, have you had some deals through this?
I think it does two things. It is getting you inbound leads of people, spotting you, and we've definitely got like at least 1 or 2 clients out of it. But it's also making the conversations that you're having higher converting because they know you. You've already built trust before. You don't have to do that in the first conversation. And that actually allows them to get on. And the third thing is I see it as a form of mass relationship nurturing. We have a lot of people that we speak to. We cannot get in touch with them on a weekly basis, monthly basis, catch up and everything. We can interact with them. They can read our posts, and therefore we're top of mind. So if they ever hear about someone that needs market making, they're like, hey, I know these guys. I've been watching their posts for a while and I've spoken to them a year ago. Otherwise, we would have not been top of mind anymore, and we would just be someone that they spoke to a year ago, but they would never refer us, so to say.
Very interesting. Amazing. So we covered a lot of things. We covered ideation, we covered validation, we covered, business models, how to get your first customers. We discussed, how to scale your customers. A couple of more things before we wrap up is team building, because that's one thing. Because I've realized that if you want to go far, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with people. So I want to talk about what are your thoughts on how important is it to build team? How do you hire people? And then, I would like to touch on mindset because that's really important. So let's talk about team building first.
Any specific things around team building or just in general?
I mean, you mentioned that you started with your 2 founders. And so that the takeaway for founders is that bootstrap as long as you can, remain lean as fast as you can, and do things yourself. Because one thing I realized is initially what I used to do is, for example, one of the channels that we used to acquire customers is Upwork. Upwork is a freelancing platform. For service-based businesses that aren't leveraging Upwork, go do that. I have a video on that, how you can leverage Upwork to get customers. So, but the thing was, I hired someone to do it without even figuring out myself. So I wasted 6 months paying that guy, paying for the platform, and I had 0 results. So I was like, I'm going to just spend a few weeks learning everything myself. So I did that and I got the results, and then I delegated to someone. So the takeaway for founders is that figure out yourself first and then delegate, right? So you were doing everything yourself first, but at one stage you were like, okay, I need to do something that has a bigger ROI, I want to delegate with someone, right? With the content stuff like so. How did you hire people? What framework did you use?
Um, Basically, what you said is like it was our job to push the business forward to a level where we can afford people to hire, the typical bootstrapping way. But then we push it forward, explore, and then we hire someone to take over our repetitive tasks. And then we have bandwidth to push it forward another time, and then hopefully hire another person to put on that. We're right now at a stage where we've done a couple pushes, and there's a lot of things handled on the operational side. But we're now hiring someone that is also able to push forward. But that means that I can push forward, he can push forward in a different direction, and you have multiple tangents that grow. And I think that's how businesses grow in general. First, it's two founders that each individually push things forward, put people in place. And now we have 3 people, maybe 4, that can push things forward individually on each of their departments. And at some point hire themselves someone that does the operational side of things. So in that sense, push it forward yourself, experiment, explore. That's your role. Get out of your comfort zone, and then put someone in place once you have that knowledge. And at some point, hire a high-skilled person that can push forward themselves as well.
Yeah. But what I'm trying to figure out here is how do you hire that high-skilled person? Because I have messed up a lot. I've hired people that have cost me thousands of dollars. I even create a video, an article on that, like how you can hire developers. Because in our case, we needed developers, right? And we used to hire people who on the upfront, because again, you can't really trust someone if you haven't worked with them, right? So when I'm on the call with the people that I'm hiring, I tell them to their face, I don't trust you. The only way I'll trust you is if I've spent a few months with you, because that's how only you get to, know people, right? Because on the first thing, everyone is trying to present their best selves, but you really get to know someone when you've had challenges, when you ask them to work an extra hour or you ask them to work a weekend. I mean, you shouldn't do that as a founder, but sometimes you have to do that, right? So that's when you really, and then you see their attitude and you see how, because for me, because see, if I'm hiring someone, I don't have to worry about that problem. So even if I hire someone and then I have to worry about that problem, then what is my use of hiring you, right? Figure it out yourself. So what framework do you use for hiring people? Like when you're in an interview, like first of all, how do you get the talent to reach out to you? I mean, you might use job platforms or your network. How do you find those people and how do you evaluate them?
So finding is a couple of things. It is having a brand. So whenever you post something like, hey, we're looking for someone, people will actually like, hey, I like this company, what they talk about. I want to work for them. So we've had a couple applicants to that. And then we worked with some recruiters on that. And that is something that maybe as a very early stage startup, something you can do because it's quite expensive. But at some point you can do that to really just get high quality people your way. Other thing is just like posted on job boards, which is something we haven't really done. And to be very frank, like we've been lucky because I used to work for a company that built an open source trading algorithm. So it's open source and I was very active in that community. They dropped a couple people. We picked them up. I used to work with them before. A friend of my co-founders working at their company. So we kind of knew everyone already a little bit and we knew their skill level, what they were working on and everything. But what I really trying to focus on still is I prefer to invest my time in someone that will be here for the next 3 years rather than someone that is here just to seek some short-term profits themselves and reap some benefit. And if they get a better offer, they'll leave. We have trained a guy from zero to where he's at right now on the trading side just because he's very loyal and he wants to contribute to the company. So that has been a very important one for me. Second thing is now we're hiring a very high-level person that needs to push the business forward himself. That is we're potentially hiring. That is an ex-colleague of mine as well. So I kind of know him. So we've been very lucky in that sense. We're also now hiring our first BD that we don't know. But then it's a lot about feeling, but especially is he willing to stick around for a long time or is he just whenever he gets a better offer from another company doing it? Does he align with the values that we have initially? And does he have the same view about project as we have? And if he has all of that, like power to move the business forward himself, motivation, and willing to stick around for a long time, and he has decent skills, we can teach him the product and basically a little bit how to sell it. And then we can do that. And if he then is not qualified enough, at one point we'll have to drop him, unfortunately, but we haven't had that yet.
Yeah. I mean, as a startup founder, you'll have to hire slow and fire fast. I
Yeah,
remember when, I mean, in the past, that the businesses that I've done, I had freelancers and contractors, which means I pay them, they do my work, and then we just go on our own ways, right? And I built a big network of these freelancers, but it wasn't up until this specific business where I had to give them year-long contract because first of all, the talent that we need is really valuable, and they have opportunities lying around. Because again, if someone
yeah,
is really like, so I had to first time hire them. But when I had to fire my first employee, I was thinking, okay, he has a family, he has a kid. But then eventually, as a founder, I realized you have to take that hard pill, and I'm the one who does that in my business. If someone isn't like, see, we try, because first of all, if they aren't performing, it's your mistake as a founder because you haven't really spent enough time, evaluating them. But once you have them in your business, I like to help people, right? Because like you said, right, so what you said is, I can summarize: play long term game with long term people. Naval Ravikant says that play long term games with long term, but eventually you have to let them go because it's better for them. In some cases they might find a better opportunity which will help them move forward in your career path. And you as a founder, be empathetic and help them connect, introduce you to your network. So if you're a founder and you're in a position where you have to let go of someone, don't take your time, do that, because that is something you'll have to do. I mean, if you have that empathy in you, it will be a little difficult for you, but you have to do it eventually. All right. So if I were to summarize what you shared on hiring, is that you should first look at your personal network, because you already have some kind of trust with them, right? They won't cheat you, scam you, or you're really familiar with their skill set. So that's the first thing. Second, as you mentioned, looking for hiring companies. That is very good, because I do have a podcast coming up with someone, a very big recruiter, so I learned
oh,
a lot
cool.
in that. So recruitment companies, but you really can't afford them. So in the early days, it's best you just leverage your personal network to get people in. And when you have them and you figure out the person, look for if their values align with you, and are they willing to stick long term with you, because you mentioned skills aren't really that important for you because you can always train them. What you're looking for is values and principles. And then the framework that I use is that high integrity,
Yep.
high integrity. I have a framework for hiring: high integrity, high energy, and highly intelligent. Because
Hmm.
if you need to have these three things, because if you have high integrity, and you have you don't have really high intelligence, then you have someone who is smart, who is loyal, but he's not bringing any value. But if you have someone
Yeah,
who is highly intelligent and not a high integrity, you just have a hardworking crook. So you have to find the right balance. Amazing. So I hope
I
that
think I think indirectly we have a similar framework, because I think when you said it, I was like, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So actually,
yeah,
thanks for that. I'll probably text you to put them down one more time to me.
amazing. Yeah, and that's not mine. I see Naval Ravikant. I'm familiar with Naval Ravikant.
Yeah, he sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's the Indian American billionaire. He was the investor in Twitter and Uber. He's the founder of Angel List, and now he talks. And
Yeah.
again, he was a big believer in crypto. So I really love his insights on that. Amazing. So last thing before two
Yeah.
things
Yeah. Yeah.
actually: mindset and how do you plan to move Enflux forward? Like, what can people expect from you, and what's your long-term vision with the company? Because from what I've learned from you, you're like the person who's thinking long-term. You're not focused on short-term games, and then that's really actually good. So how is your mindset as a founder in dealing with challenges? And again, because again, like I said, I am interviewing you because I've been in your position somewhat, right? So I know what
Hmm.
you might go through daily balance, because it's like being a founder is like a journey, like a roller coaster journey. You have high highs and you have low lows, right? Sometimes you're like,
Yeah.
we are gonna make it, and some like, okay, should I quit? These are the things you
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
through as a
Yeah.
so 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 how do you, what's your mindset on being a founder, and how do you deal with these challenges on daily basis?
um, One of the things I struggle with is it's your job to every day think about what is moving the business forward, rather than just doing operational stuff and what you're being told. And in order for me to do that properly, I have to have some kind of like peace of mind, and not be too occupied, because right now I've done a lot of sales calls, a lot of things on the operational side of things. If you look at my calendar, it's packed, but it's packed with, and that doesn't allow me to have time to really think about where should this business go. or allow me to have enough time to really sit down with a guy like you or someone like an employee or a client, like, hey, how do you really think we're doing? What should we improve on? And really get that clarity out there. Because due to all the busyness, that clarity is not always there. And I really have to take some rest to really know where this business will kind of go.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that is a really good thing, which is you being a calm, right? Because if you have to worry, because again, like I said, I'm being very realistic, right? I talk to founders who are like me, right? I don't talk to founders who are billionaires or millionaires because they operate in different. I'm talking to people that are like me in somewhat or somewhat more successful than me. They have to worry about their own bills and stuff like that. But so what you're saying is that you need to have a calm mind, so you don't really have to worry about your survival, because when you're in survival mindset, you can't think about thriving, right? You can't think of growing your company if you're always worried about how I'm going to pay the bills, right? So as a founder, first you have to get out of there, and that's where we talk about ramen profitability, so you don't have to worry about your lifestyle. And then in my case, I've been very fortunate where my co-founders handle the operations, so I really focus on growth, right? In the early days, I was in operations as well, and we realized that if we all are focused on operations, which is serving the client, who will focus on growth, right? There has to be someone. So if you're lucky enough to have co-founders, I mean, you can assign responsibilities. So someone can focus on operation, which is very important because that's what keep the engine running. But you need to have someone who can focus on growth. So in your case, so you're saying you as a founder, you're trying to get rid of all the things that keep you busy, but not help you move the business forward. And then you can, with a calm mind, you can think on how to take this on a next stage, right?
Yeah, but it's not a moment that really shifts that, right? It's ongoing, where slowly and gradually I'm moving responsibilities away, getting more into the other direction, right? I think Jeff Bezos said it one. His job is to make 5 very important decisions in a year. That is the extreme if you look at the size of his company, and that's what really is important for him. I started doing a lot of operation, which is 100 decisions a day, where you're slowly and gradually moving towards making higher level decisions, but just lower amounts, I guess, because all the repetitive decisions or something are being handled by the operational side of things that you've hired people for. So
very interesting.
It is maybe just getting rid of all the smaller decisions that you have to make, which are less impactful, letting someone else do that, and also having the trust that they can do that properly. So you can take the higher level decisions, which are more demanding, but there are fewer of them, but they're going to be more impactful.
Amazing. So the takeaway for a founder is that try to delegate as much as you can and focus on having peace of mind and make important decisions that can help you go forward. Because if you're just too busy on solving day-to-day problems, you can't really figure out how to grow the business further. Amazing.
It's balancing, right? Because you still got to put in the work yourself first before you can delegate.
One personal question: how do you deal with? I mean, okay, that's good. We are talking about strategic decisions, but how do you deal with your own thoughts as a founder? Like, am I doing the right thing? Where will the business be in 3 months? Will I be able to pay the salaries? How do you deal with these type of questions? How do you deal with those questions? Because not enough people talk about it, but I can tell you these are the things that go through every founder's mind every day.
100%. Yeah. I should be. I have a life coach that helps me with these things, and we talk about it a lot, which is awesome. And it's kind of like that's on a weekly basis. But I think that is just one time a week is not enough. I should do more journaling. I should do more walks on the beach to think about it and sit down with my own thoughts. And I think those things are just really important. Probably daily walks, and journaling helped a lot. I did a lot in the past, and I want to pick it up again, because I feel like those things really help with just putting my mind down and processing things and talk about those insecurities. Second thing that I started to do actually recently, I was really looking for a founders community out there in Amsterdam, because I was like, I'm here, my co-founder is not here, we all work remotely. It's just me in this nice house on a with a nice desk and stuff. But I have no one to talk to, share these shitty stories with. I talk about all this shit that a founder has to go through, like these conversations we're having, right? So I definitely think if you have a founders community, go out there, because they are in the same spot as you're in, they'll be
Yeah.
able to help you, support you, etc.
And you feel that you're not alone, right? You have a
Yeah.
support group that they might advise you or they might listen to you. I watched this podcast called My First Million. Are you familiar with that? Okay, so there are two guys, Sean Puri and Sam Parr. They have, like, these are two founders who built their own businesses, sold them. One guy sold to Twitch, another guy sold to HubSpot. And then I mean, like, really good advice. Like, they talk about business in general. And one of them recently started a business called Hampton, which is like a community of founders where, like, and then these are like high net worth individuals. They're doing a couple of millions in revenue, right? So big league players, and they get them all together once a week or once a month, and it's like a safe space for them where we talk about things that they don't really normally talk about, right? So I mean, yeah, we should have something like that in Web3. I'm pretty sure there are a couple of that, but that's amazing. All right, so the next, yeah, go ahead.
It doesn't have to be Web3 only, right? I feel like I've spoken to a friend of mine and his boyfriend. He has had 5 businesses already, and even though they're completely in a different category or different industry, like, there's still so much to relate on. So it doesn't only have to be Web3 founders only. It can be almost any founders, because you have so much in common and so many things that you can discuss, and you're walking the same path, but then just in a different industry.
Yeah, amazing. And then one thing I've realized, because one of my goals is to travel the world. I want to travel to all 192 countries. I've traveled to like 9 so far. Again, and it's difficult on a Pakistani passport. So that's like a whole another set of problem. Our passport is like the third last thing, right? And we get a lot of difficulties. But so what I do is that I watch YouTube. If I can't go there in person, I can watch other people go there, right? So I watch a lot of YouTubers. And one thing I've learned is that people all around the world are very similar. They have the same problems, they have the same hopes, they have the same decision, right? So like you said, right, even though they're in different industry, different scale, they have the same problem. So you're very similar. I mean, you were raised in another environment. I was in another environment, but we share a lot of similar problems, the dreams and stuff. I mean, that's very interesting. All right, so before we wrap up, how can people benefit from Enflux? Let's say if someone is watching and I hope someone with a centralized exchange watches you. What can they do next to get in touch with you, and how they can help you? I'll put the links in the description, but you can just give me a step-by-step process.
I mean, the best place to reach out to us is on enflux.io. That's the website. But I think if you want to follow us, we talk a lot on LinkedIn. Me, the CMO, and the other co-founder. And that's probably the best place to follow us. And if you really want to chat, shoot us a DM, and that's how we can reach out to us.
Amazing. So with that, we'll wrap up the episode. I really learned a lot today about market making, and this was very insightful conversation for me. And I hope you guys benefit from this as well. With that, we'll wrap up the episode. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next episode.
Yes, thanks for having me.